first thing first, your name and the name of the project you are bringing here in Virtual Immersive Island.
Hello, my name is Matthew Niederhauser, and I am one of the creators of Tulpamancer.
And I'm Mark DaCosta, the other creator of Tulpamancer.
Tulpamancer is one of the most discussed project here this edition. Why?
I think Tulpamancer is starting to explore how artificial intelligence is impacting storytelling and the creation of new forms of media, and it's foreshadowing what is going to become a very impactful new tool in how artists create new works, and of course is already having major impact within cinema. But our piece is a artistic virtual reality installation. We think we're using it in new ways, showing new possibilities, but everyone is thinking about it right now, potentially scared, potentially excited, and so we've been seeing lots of very interesting reactions to the piece so far.
Maybe we can explain something more about the piece, how it works when you get in.
Absolutely. So Tulpamancer is most simply an installation that gives people an opportunity to encounter firsthand the ways in which artificial intelligence sort of responds to memory and constructs narratives. So most simply, you walk into a room where there's an old computer that, as the story goes, we have recovered from a warehouse from a mysterious dead scientist in East Germany. And you sit down at this computer and you, for the first time, meet this Tulpa character. And it guides you through a series of questions about your memories and your thoughts for the future. And then you are invited into a next room where a virtual reality world and sort of set of narratives that are spoken out loud have been created specifically for you out of the responses. In general, we're trying to create an opportunity for people to have a new experience and way of considering the limitations and implications of what it means that these sorts of technologies will be engaging and watching us at very intimate levels.
What is Tulpa? Tulpa is a concept, right?
A tulpa is a concept, and it is an ancient one that dates back to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It has also been popularized in recent philosophical movements. It's also, I was recently just told, a concept found in David Lynch's work. But fundamentally, it's the idea that through meditation or concentration, you can manifest an entity outside of yourself that you can speak to. A very simple way, I don't want to, you could maybe even say an imaginary friend, but it's something that comes out of hard work and practice. And we sort of use the term in a new way because we see these large language models, these new machine learning tools, almost as a tulpa for the entire corpus of the internet. These new artificial intelligence tools are based off of all of humanity's imagery, text, emails, and in a way has extrapolated something that you can speak to, you can converse to in new and interesting ways. So Tulpamancer is derived in many ways from that idea, but fundamentally, it's about encountering these new machine learning models that are being used for image creation, for text creation, and we weave them together in a way that tells a very personal story based off of your input, and then it is also deleted at the end as well. So you only get to experience it once, and then it is gone.
And if I could just add one thing by word of context. So as Matthew said, this kind of tulpa idea has its origins in Tibetan Buddhism, but it became very much so popularized in the West, about 120 years ago or so. There was one book that we drew a lot of inspiration from, and it was also very influential for the emergence of abstract painting in the late 19th and early 20th century, called Thought Forms by Annie Besant. And in this book, there is a lot of discussions. This is part of the Theosophical movement, and a lot of discussion about in a sense, this book is kind of an alternative reaction to modernity and to the technological changes that were happening at the time. It wound up becoming extremely important for artists like Pierre Mondrian and Kandinsky and Hilma af Klint. And it was sort of, I think when we now see ourselves sort of at the edge of a new creative medium with AI, asking ourselves what that will do for sort of a change in artistic practice, there's also an interest in sort of engaging backwards towards maybe the last time there was such a big shift.
That's the question. So this is an entity, but that is at the same time a little bit of God and a little bit of technology. So we will be slave of a new technology.
I would say it's a little bit of us and a little bit of technology, and that's why it's so interesting to have a conversation with it. You can see, some strains of humanity in it, insofar as you see it trying to understand what you're saying. And I will repeat this: if you do the experience, it's uncanny. It's really amazing what it produces, but you clearly see where it doesn't grasp everything that you're trying to intuit, or it sometimes goes in wrong directions. The pace that the technology is changing, that could be a very different story in 2 to 3 years in terms of how it can mimic humanity. I mean, in this sense, like, it's hard. You can spend a long time thinking about how the many ill uses that is going to come from this technology that are already happening, especially in deep fakes and the creation of fake information and to defraud people. But in many ways, this genie is out of the bottle, and it's going to be used by artists. It's going to be used by bad people. But we need to think about it as a whole, as individuals. We need to understand what it is, how it works, and how to recognize it in a way. So I don't know. I don't think I've completely finished my thoughts on what we have brought here. It's only been 2 or 3 days. The reactions have been across the board, but I think the most important thing is that people are stopping and thinking about it differently, and paying close attention to what this all means.
Well, you know that on the other side of the Riva di Corinto, there's a strike that involved the rest of the world. And so what do you think about people that are doing these against platforms, against AI, against everything? Do you think that this could be switched into a chance for us, and in which way?
Absolutely. I think it's complicated. I think it's also worth recognizing just from the outset that it's kind of amazing that the first labor strikes against AI are coming from the sort of creative and film industry. I think in 25 years, however the world might change, it will be seen kind of as a historically important first, sense of people saying no or pushing back or whatever, which I think, even though, we're sort of very much so in the midst of a film festival and immersed in this world, I think it's worth remarking. But to answer your question more directly, I would say it's complicated. On the one hand, there are very real labor issues and very real problems that this is going to create that people should organize together to make sure that there are equitable and good outcomes. So, I think the film industry will look different in a few years because you won't need as many people to draw storyboards or concept art or to do whatever it might be. So I think the concerns, for the working people involved are extremely real.
That it's not only that, we have to remind that involve even people as journalists, and you are both of you are journalists too. So maybe it will impact much more on journalism
And remember, we, it's already been Facebook and Google who have destroyed the advertising revenue that journalism, this used to be very profitable, good businesses.
We are starving.
But, all of that on one side, I would just add, on the flip side, I think that, AI provides a new set of creative tools. I think it provides a new way for, creativity and ingenuity to be applied. I'm afraid that there are some major, problems with the way that capitalism functions, and it's going to negatively impact a lot of people. But I think for, at least the question of art and of aesthetics and creating important, beautiful, challenging work, this will take up these new tools and persist.
As you said yesterday, we are in a very primordial state of the technology, but let's explain well. In 15 minutes, with Tulpamancer, we got a short movie. Mm-hmm. So written, edited, cut, and interpreted by AI. That's the problem, right? In just 15 minutes.
In 15 minutes, but there a lot of work went into even telling it how to frame the story. You know what I mean? We didn't make it in 15 minutes in order for it to make a film for you in 15 minutes. We spent months getting it to a place.
How many months, just to have an idea?
We've been thinking about this project for years, and in terms of making it, took 4 months. And so to be in that place took a lot of effort, and using those tools, it didn't take us 15 minutes to conjure it up and do it. I mean, but once again, like, this is a certain moment in time, and it could very well change. It's and quite frankly, when we started thinking about this project over a year ago, the implications of showing it here, were not apparent to us either. You know what I mean? And
because it was before the strike.
It was way before. I mean, it was before the rush of everybody. Really, as Mark said, creating this historic moment in terms of the first people standing up in a very serious way to the massive disruption that AI is going to bring to labor markets and to people's livelihoods. And it's an important first step, and especially is going to be impactful in industries that are already exploitive in the first place.
So the question even is another one. I wonder why industry is not interested at this state in AR. There's no people from the other side in here. That's surprising me and many other people. So
this is a pretty long conversation to potentially have, because I switched from journalism and photography and cinema into new media, and watched large technology companies spend billions on devices to consume this type of media, and it doesn't have the same distribution and impact in terms of sheer numbers that people get off of mobile devices and television. Still, it's still in very, very early days. And so I was expecting, there has been a lot of attention. And we've found out we've been on the Italian national news twice already in the past 24 hours, and in print as well. So people have noticed to a certain extent. No, we knew coming in that the fact that we were a project that was using artificial intelligence as part of the creation of its narrative, that people would take notice to a certain extent. But as I said, our hope in the creation of this project is to drive dialogue, and to also point how these tools are also going to be used outside of a cinematic universe as well. Like, ours is still fundamentally an art installation that literally over the course of 1 week, only a few hundred people are probably going to be able to see. We can't reach 1 billion people with what.
And that would be the next question. After Venice Immersive, where we can find you?
Well, we are going to probably do a few more festivals. We're hoping to continue to work and refine it, but quite frankly, it's too early to tell. We are still getting responses. We're still thinking about what's next, and whether or not we'll even continue to use those tools for our artistic practice. For us, it was a very big experiment, one that we think is important, but
And in terms of earnings?
Oh, this is not an earnings moment.
Yeah, no, sadly, I think it's, I think for us it's, again, this is very experimental work.
I'm sorry for this question, but we need to create even a conversation about the way we have to find a way to live, no?
Yeah, and it's, there is, it's, at least in this immersive, it's, where does funding come from for these things? It is, can often be difficult to come by. It isn't a film that's then going to be distributed internationally and these sorts of things. But I think for us, the motivation for creating it wasn't fundamentally a commercial one. It was, really about this exploratory moment. Where do we go from here? This is, I think, an open question from how do you build a sustainable, artistic and creative practice. It's not...
It's a lifelong mission for us as well. I wish I had a better answer to that. I probably should think about that. But, as I said, I think we were motivated by the concept of the work itself. And we do not have any definitive, fiscal upside to doing this at this
The
point.
best part of the thing is the total freedom to do anything you experiment, anything you want. And when money will arrive, we don't have any more.
No, I've lived paycheck for a very long time working as a journalist before, and I still have a studio in New York, and I do take on commercial work, that looks nothing like this. You know what I mean? So
For commercial work, you mean advertising or what?
No, it's more like if a large technology company wants to create a narrative or a story in their VR, I will come up with ideas and produce it. So it's still original creative work, but I'm doing it with the funding from a technology company.
During those days, probably you have seen or participate to some experience here. So the future for you, it's in the worlds, in the augmented reality, or in what?
I think, one thing that I always react to is how a lot of the narrative around, sort of the future of the medium or whatever becomes very focused on kind of technologies in a way. So is it going to use AI? Is it going to use VR? Whatever. I think it's funny. It's like, we no longer are surprised that something is online or electrified or whatever. I don't think that any of these media personally are kind of the future in and of themselves. I think there are new sort of capabilities and tools that will into the background.
Yes,
My-
they will be incorporated in our lives so much more easily
you
than
don't-
we
You
think.
don't even notice it anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
I think different stories need to be told in different mediums. And for me, I'm not an evangelist for virtual reality headsets or augmented reality. Sometimes I miss taking photographs, and I still do, and I want to tell a story just with photographs, or I want to tell a story that's going to be best represented through a cinematic production. You know, all of these different ways of communicating to an audience are very different compared to what you see in a headset here. And what's interesting is that telling a story in VR is very, very different from cinema, and in some ways almost more akin to theater. So it's these are all very experimental pieces, and none of them are really alike in many ways. And so for me, like as an artist and a creator, I want to use the medium that is going to best tell the story. And at this moment, in terms of Tulpamancer, we decided that it was virtual reality combined with machine learning and this very important set design, this dramaturgical. Yeah, this
Dramaturg.
I believe that there will be a diversity of different ways that people tell stories and consume them in the future. And as an artist, I want to, I've been fascinated with the differences of them and choosing between them in order to have impact. And